Welcome to the Court of History. I'm Sidney Blumenthal. I'm here with my co-host, Sean Wilentz of Princeton University. Without further ado, let us bring in our guest, Michael Cohen, the former attorney for Donald Trump, author of two memoirs, Disloyal and Revenge, and writer on the Michael Cohen Substack. Welcome, Michael.
Good to see you both again for the second
I
hour.
want to pick up where we left
my
off.
good friends, my longtime friends. So good to see you both. You're looking both great. Great.
Yeah, you got Sean going again. So
sorry, I can't be erudite in my laughter.
You know, the funny thing is I used to do that to him across the table. And, at first I didn't think that, he realized that I was,
Right.
he did. Yeah, he did. Right. And in fact, he thought it was actually pretty funny. He does have a real sense of humor. People don't realize that. And I think it's the fact that he's not able to even have a sense of humor amongst this group of people. Again, going back to what you were bringing up before.
Yeah.
None of them know him. None of them legitimately care about him. I may have been the last person that he was close to that actually truly cared about him as a person.
Well, they all think they need to be complete sycophants and suck up to him, and that's what he wants.
Yeah, I mean, could you imagine at school, at Princeton, if you made everybody in the class, let's say you have a nice little intimate class of 50, and they're all sitting around a table, and, every single one of them says, Professor Sean, you're the greatest thing that's happened since sliced bread. And then the next one has to figure out, that's the greatest outfit I've ever seen in my life. You are the handsomest, smartest, your theories on, molecular dysfunction. It's just, it puts me in awe. Thank God that they were smart enough and each and every one has to top the other one. After a while, it becomes like a bar fest, right? Everyone wants to throw up on each other because you walk out and you're like, seriously? And then you say to the guy, hey, Joe, where the hell did you come up with that horse shit? Oh, yeah, I Googled it. What's something to say to the professor that's going to really crawl up his backside?
But, this is the thing about Trump, though, because Trump does have a sense of humor, can respond to these things. People don't get that. He's shtick. He's funny. I laugh at him all the time. He can be very, very funny.
Well, that's part of his appeal is he's an entertainer.
He's an entertainer, but unless there are people around him who can play with that, who are just not sycophants, who can actually appeal to his humanity, which is there in a sense of humor, he's screwed. He can't. You
see, I used to say to him all the time, that's maybe not the best strategy for us to accomplish what you want. I was actually known as somebody who would say no. Now, that didn't mean that he would change his mind, but I tell you what he did do a lot. He watered down the poison. You see, in order to get to, say, 50th and First Avenue, it's not one route. There are multiple routes that you can take. Some may have traffic, some may have potholes, others just may be a better way to go. It may be a little longer, but it's a better way to go. And that was what I would try to do. And that was really super successful for him. But there is nobody there that is able to do this because, again, none of them know him. None of them care about him. It's all about money and power for his entire cabinet. In fact, what I would have liked to see during his cabinet meeting today, where he would have turned around and said, all right, I want everybody to write on a piece of one of those Post-it notes or on a piece of paper. How much money have you personally made since joining my administration? All right. I would have loved to have seen that because the numbers would probably make most people fall off their seat. While 42 million Americans were going without food and government assistance and stuff, they're literally throwing parties at Mar-a-Lago for $1 million a plate. They're building a ballroom that's going to cost in excess of $350 million. They're spending money like a bunch of drunken sailors. They're giving out, subsidies and favors to one another like it's it's candy corn during Halloween, which nobody wants. They're all making tons and tons and tons of money.
Well, to that point, Michael, here's what I want to ask you about. And it is how we ended part one. We ended part one talking about Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, who were negotiating with Putin and a Russian businessman named Dmitriev about a so-called peace agreement in Ukraine, which is really an appeasement agreement. And what it amounts to is just carving it all up. And according to the Wall Street Journal report, how to make profits. And it strikes me that that is the essence of Trump's foreign policy. And that's what it's all about. And people looking for, balance of power or this or that or, national interest or America first. It's really about the money. Am I right or wrong here?
I mean, you're right. I say it all the time that Trump's America first policy is more America last for the rest of us. I mean, they're thinking now, I wouldn't even say that it's like an appeasement. I would say it's a complete and total surrender plan.
Surrender, exactly.
You're no longer permitted to be part of NATO. You're no longer permitted to militarize. You're no longer, permitted to have certain property. You have to surrender it all, the mineral rights and everything. Well, sure. What else would you want, Vlad? Right? Why don't you tell me what else can we give? And think about Witkoff for a second, right? What experience does he have in national diplomacy, international diplomacy? He's a real estate builder. I know, I've bought in 2 of his buildings. He's a real estate developer, plain and simple. So now all of a sudden you're out there trying to negotiate a peace plan with a terrorist, with a demagogue, a self-proclaimed monarch, dictator, ruler, like FBI, KGB agent named Vladimir Putin, and you think that you could match wits with him? Seriously? I know your last name is Witkoff, but you can't match wits with Vladimir Putin. I mean, the funny thing is, if Steve Witkoff was half a man, or Kushner, who's a third of a man, would turn around and say, Mr. President, I got to be honest with you, it's not a job that I should be tasked with, right? Sometimes being big enough to say, it's not a job that I can do. Like what I had said regarding, people said, oh, you wanted to be chief of staff. No, I didn't. I actually turned around and said, that's not a job for me. No chance. I'm not qualified for that. There are jobs that I am qualified for. There's jobs that I am not qualified for. Each one of them should have turned around and said, I'm not qualified for that. Pete Hegseth, listening to this asshole turn around and preach to admirals and generals how he was the squad leader for his platoon. Wow. No kidding. Holy crap. You've got to be kidding. Somebody grab the marching band and get this guy a set of flowers because this guy had his own platoon. These guys, these generals and admirals commanded thousands, tens of thousands of soldiers. He's talking about how he commanded a squad, a platoon, as if he's on their level. I mean, he is incompetent to handle. You take him. Now, Pam Bondi, on the other hand, is one who was competent to be Attorney General if she wasn't such an acolyte and a sycophant, where she actually cared more about the law than appeasing him. But I want to be clear with your listeners, too. That only goes so far. Merrick Garland, who I consider to be the worst Attorney General in the history of this country, what Joe Biden should have done is gotten somebody who is like in between a Merrick Garland and a Bill Barr. That's what he really needed. Somebody that would have acted quicker and more decisive instead of trying to blame everything. I don't want to be political. Pam Bondi is the exact opposite. She's Bill Barr on steroids.
What did Trump ever offer any opinions about his son-in-law, Jared, who he's now given all these responsibilities and has come in to negotiate, apparently without a government position.
Well, by the way, he didn't really have the government position the first administration also. He didn't have clearance. He was unable to. Okay, let's dive into that one for a second. Jared Kushner was unable to get clearance. And so the only reason he was able to get it because the president turned around and waived the clearance requirement for him. Think about that. Now, you're asking a guy who can't get top clearance from doing an FBI and so background, you're going to ask him to go to Russia, to Israel, to the Middle East, to Mohammed bin Salman, and to negotiate on behalf of this country, not on behalf of himself, on behalf of this country. Well, you know what you end up getting? You end up getting the end of a first administration, and a week or 2 weeks later, Jared Kushner, for a first time out, opens up a fund and gets funded by more than $2 billion from the Saudi Investment Authority, despite the fact, and I know some of those guys personally, despite the fact that the finance guys for the Saudi Investment Authority specifically said to Mohammed bin Salman that this guy is not qualified to manage our money. MBS, I don't care. Give him $2 billion. And then he went and he squeezed the Emiratis and he squeezed the Qataris and everybody else in between. What do you think he's there? What do you think he's there in Israel for? Because he's so valuable? Because he knows so much, right? What do you think he's doing there with Vladimir Putin? Whatever it is, I assure you one thing. It's not for the benefit of any of us. It's for the benefit of his fund.
Yeah. So let me just switch gears.
And to answer your question, Trump was never a big fan of Jared's in the first place. The reason that Jared ended up as special advisor is because Ivanka asked for it and demanded it from daddy.
Yeah. So let me just switch gears and go back in a time machine here to the 2016 campaign. And there's some things that, loose ends here hanging. One of them was raised by Ronan Farrow, writer for the New Yorker, about the catch and kill campaign run by the National Enquirer.
I read the book.
Yeah. He claims that there were more than 60 stories, quite apart from, Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal, that were caught and killed about Trump during the campaign. Does that sound right to you and at all?
I never actually added them up, but I wouldn't dispute what Ronan is saying. Every day there was another story. In fact, sometimes the stories and the leaks were coming from people on the inside. I had never in my life seen more infighting, more backstabbing than what was going on during the 2015 through 2016 election. I mean, I'll never forget, Corey Lewandowski was putting out articles. He was sneaking articles or, raising questions to certain reporters about Jared and Ivanka's marriage, about Jared's sexual proclivities. I mean, you name it. And they were like, no, it's not true. What a fight I had with Trump when Ivanka demanded that I be the one to tell her father, right? She came into my office. She goes, you need to tell dad. And I was like, no, Ivanka, I think it'd be better if you did it, right? And he was like, because, Trump didn't really want to get rid of Lewandowski, and not because he was good, but because he was cheap. I mean, I think we were paying him like $5,000 or something like that, or $2,500 a week. That's how Corey got hired, because he was really dirt cheap for a campaign manager. Well, ultimately, I went to him, and Ivanka, also backed me up post fact after Trump accused me of disliking Corey and wanting him gone. It was Don Jr. and I who ended up, shit canning him, but because Trump wouldn't do it. But that's what they would do. And they would put out. So my job, along with some other people as well, but mostly on me, was catching and killing these stories. because
Can you
some of
describe any of
them
them at this point?
I don't even remember.
Characterize them?
What were they? They were all over. They were all over the board. I mean, they had to deal with him and Melania. They dealt with him and Trump University. They dealt with him and Stormy. Him and Karen McDougal. Him and the mob. Him and Ivana. I mean, you name it. Anything that anybody. The same way today. There is no one singular story that you could point to and say, that's really bad for Trump. They're all bad for him, which is why
how many of them receive money?
The only one I was ever involved with
Or that you know about.
Well, the only two that I know where there was any money exchanged was Karen McDougal and Stormy Daniels.
Yeah, there was the doorman at Trump Tower too, involving the story about the alleged illegitimate child.
Yeah. First of all, that wasn't true, and there was no money paid out on that one, not by Trump. David Pecker, I think, bought the rights to that story. So that would be three.
Yeah. Did you ever deal with Dylan Howard, who was involved in the catch
every day?
Yeah. So he was also running catch and kill for Harvey Weinstein at the same time.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. He was a busy guy.
In fact, even if I had known at the time, it wouldn't have made a difference to me. I didn't care about Harvey Weinstein. Had nothing. My plate was more than full dealing with my guy.
Yeah, see a lot of income.
But here's the thing too. So I'm glad you brought up the story of the doorman.
Yeah.
I happen to know the child that they claimed was Trump's. I know the woman who the allegation of the sexual relationship with, and I know the husband. Both the husband and the wife work at the Trump organization in different capacities. The child doesn't have an ounce of anything other than Puerto Rican or Hispanic blood. Trump has very distinct features. Look at Eric, look at Tiffany, right? She's the female version of Eric. Look at Barron, looks just like them. And if you take a look and there's a very distinct Trump look. This child doesn't have it. On top of that, I also happened to see that there was a genealogical test that was done. And there's no German-Scottish blood in that child.
Yeah, let me ask you about another story from 2016.
But you see, that was the problem too. You were dealing with so many fake stories, which is again, all it does is enhance Trump's accuracy. When he keeps saying fake news, they're out to get me. They're out to get me. In many cases, they were, because it's a salacious story, and it brought clicks and eyeballs to the table. Yeah.
Well, here's another one to discuss, and that involves Jerry Falwell Jr. He endorsed Donald Trump after the Access Hollywood tape, and he was involved in his own scandal and making payments to somebody. And you were involved in this. You have knowledge about this. Were the two connected, and how did this all come about?
So this is another story, again, that lends credibility to when Trump says we need better defamation laws in this country. It's fake news. The stories that came out regarding Jerry and Becky Falwell about Becky having an affair, that's true. With the pool boy, that's not a lie. But Trump having anything to do with it, there was a movie that was made that alleged that I had extorted Jerry and Becky with this information, with photographs that allegedly the pool boy had of Becky naked, that I used that to extort them to support Trump. And that's not true at all. I still to this day maintain a relationship with Becky and Jerry Falwell. At one point, they were really like family. I mean, they would fly from Virginia to New York. We would go for dinner with my wife. The four of us would go for dinner. I spoke to them on a very regular basis when their first grandchild was born. I think I was the second person to know about it. I mean, we were incredibly close. I asked them to do me a favor because Trump was faltering back in Iowa at the time. And I said, would you go there and would you stump for him? And they turned around and they said, let me think about it, because he had Liberty University. He wanted to let them know and he wanted to pray on it. I said, great. Following day, he and Becky called and they said that they thought about it and they prayed on it and they think it's the right thing to do. And I was like, that's great. There was no extortion. They could have said no. I still would have helped Becky and Jerry any which way that I could. And by the way, the stories that they claim about me threatening this pool boy and all that, no, I didn't. I never spoke to the pool boy. I didn't even know what his name was. I spoke to his lawyer and I said, there is a concept out there called revenge porn. All right. And understand that if those pictures, if you even have them, if they end up out in the public sphere, we will bring federal charges against you for revenge porn, and we will ensure that your client does serious time, which, by the way, is not me making a prediction. It's me basically stating the law. All right. So if you wanted me stating the law is extortion, sure, then I sure did. But I stated the law. You put that out there simply because this guy wanted millions of dollars from the Falwells. Okay. It is the tip of the definition for revenge porn. And, and by the way, it's extortion really on the other side. So once again, what does it do? It opens up Trump's ability to keep claiming things like fake news and that they're all out to get him. Because there are instances, and there's quite a few of them, where the stories, the underlying stories that they were going after were just not true.
Yeah. So what can we look forward to as a last question, Michael? And we look forward to having you back again as a friend of the court here. What can we look forward to in the short run from Trump on his retribution campaigns?
More chaos. More names will ultimately come out. Obviously, he's not finished with Tish James. He's not finished with Alvin Bragg. He's not finished with Adam Schiff. He's not finished with, James Comey, not by a long stretch. And I've said it. I was on MSNBC saying it as well. I've said it on my podcasts and my shows. I believe that they will ultimately all face some form of accountability. And I go back to the book by Harvey Silverglate, which I also read while I was in prison, just like Ronan Farrow's book. That's the one nice thing about prison. You have a lot of free time. So, as somebody who's an avid reader, I see just like you with those books back there. I enjoy reading. So I got a chance to read 97 books, in my 13 months there, while learning how to weld and do other sort of manual labor things. But like the book Harvey Silverglate, which is called 5 Felonies a Day. If the government wants to get you, I don't care if you're God who comes down from the heavens. They will be able to either force you into an acknowledgement of guilt, or they will bleed you out dry financially, or they'll just wait you out, twist the law, and use something else against you in order to secure a conviction. And that's why these prosecutors, each and every one of them, have a 98% conviction rate. It's not because they're Talmud Chachams. They're no geniuses. They're not Judge Learned Hand. They're freaking morons. They just have all the power. It's almost like fighting somebody who has their hands and their legs tied, and you have a baseball bat. Okay, I'm going to bet on the guy with the baseball bat, right? 98% of the time, you're going to end up being the victor in that case too.
Well, on that note, Michael, thank you very, very much for appearing on the Court of History. And on behalf of my co-host, Sean Wilentz, the court is now adjourned.
Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.